Richard Christy. It's great to hear from you. How goes the battle?
Everything's good, man. It's great to talk to you. Thank you so much.
Absolutely, man. Absolutely. So, I've been listening to the new Charred Walls of the Damned album, Creatures Watching Over the Dead, and it fucking rips, man. General consensus is that it rips quite a bit. So, how do you feel about this latest release?
Well, thank you. I'm very honored. It freaking pumps me up to hear you say that because, it's weird when you're so close to music for so long, and I've spent, years working on this album between the writing of it and recording. It's like I'm kind of too close to know if people are going to like it or not, and that's all I can hope for is to hear somebody say something like you just said to me. So I really appreciate it. It makes all the hard work worth it, and I'm really proud of it. I think it's our best sounding album production wise, and I think it's the best catchiest songs, and it's heavy too. So I'm really super proud of it.
Absolutely, man. I meant that with the bottom of my heart too. So, so this is the third release for Charred Walls since 2009, and the first album since 2011. So, as far as supergroups go, how difficult is it to get everyone together to write and record these albums?
Well, first off, I'm flattered that you call us a super group, but I don't feel very super. people say super group, but we're just, a couple of metalheads. We're not too special. We're not like the Traveling Wilburys or anything. There's the Beatles and Tom Petty, and but I guess for kind of underground metal, we're kind of well known. But it is. We do have to do a little bit of scheduling as far as Tim's on tour a lot, which is awesome for him. It's and it's cool because he'll go. I'll see videos of him playing over in like Ukraine or somewhere, and they'll do a Charred Walls cover, which freaking blows my mind. Well, I think that's awesome. He'll be on tour and just jam with bands and do some Charred Walls songs, which is awesome. Then Steve DiGiorgio's been doing the Death to All tours, playing bass on the Death tribute tours, and which is awesome. I actually got to jam a couple songs on one of those tours a few years back. And then Jason Sukoff has been, and also Steve's been in touring with Testament as well, which I saw him when they played in Port Chester, New York, and they freaking ruled. And then Jason's been busy doing albums and all that kind of stuff. So, we can't really, we're not the kind of band that can go in for a month straight and just record and do a whole album at once. We kind of have to do it in parts, just because of our schedules. I actually went and did the drums just on a weekend that I had. I took a few days off work and went down on a Friday, Saturday, and Sunday and just banged the drums out real quick. And then Jason worked on all the guitars in his off time for recording bands and producing bands. And then, then we found a time when Steve could make it down. And then we had to arrange it because when Tim does the vocals, Jason and I are always both there too. We kind of all work together on coming up with the vocal melodies and all that good stuff. So we figured out a time when we could all be down there for 4 or 5 days. So we made it work. It took a little bit of time, but it was well worth the wait.
Awesome, man. So, as far as the lineup of Charred Walls of the Damned goes, it's a pretty damn powerful lineup. So how is it working with Steve, Tim, and Jason on these albums?
Oh, thank you for saying that. It's awesome. And, it's cool now that we have our third album out. A lot of people say, wow, some of these bands that get together when it's people from all different bands, they'll just do 1 or 2 albums. Now that we have 3 albums, people kind of know that we're here to stick around. So it's pretty awesome that we're able to keep the same lineup for all 3 albums. And that's just because they're awesome, great guys to work with. They're really chill. There's no drama with us. We're all a little bit older now, and we just like getting together to play metal. And we put our heart into it. We do it because we love it, not for any other reason. We just do it because we love metal and we enjoy hanging out together, and I think that kind of shows in the album. So it's awesome playing with these guys, and I've been friends with all of them for I mean, Steve I've known since 97. Jason I've known since 99. Tim I've known since 2003. So I've known all these guys for so long, and we just have so much fun jamming together. So it's great working with those guys.
That's awesome, man. So since your return to metal, you've released these 3 Charred Walls of the Damned albums, and you've gained a cult following, pulling from you and Steve's days in Death and Iced Earth, respectively, and also Tim's time in Iced Earth, as well as Judas Priest and however many other bands you guys have been in. And people definitely want to see this powerhouse live. So, what do you guys have on the horizon for live performances and touring?
Well, we're working on some stuff. We're most likely what'll work best for us is doing festivals. So we're kind of looking at festivals next year, and hopefully we'll get something lined up. And we definitely want to do some live shows. We have for the last 2 albums. We did a tour, U.S. and Canada tour for the first album, and then did a couple shows for the second album, including the Orion Fest with Metallica, which is awesome. And so we definitely want to. We're working on some stuff now. We don't have really anything I can confirm yet, but we're working on some stuff, and we'll work everybody's schedules out, hopefully to where we can come out and play some metal.
All right, man, that's awesome. So you're obviously best known within the metal community for your time as the legendary drummer of Death, Iced Earth, and the various other bands that you've been in throughout the years. Do you ever look back on what you've achieved with your career and reflect upon the impact that the music that you guys made has had on the history of metal and the way it continues to influence bands to this day, and will likely continue to do so for a very long time?
Well, I mean, yeah, definitely. I'm so proud of everything that I've been a part of, and so proud that I got to work with all of my favorite bands. I mean, Death was my favorite band when I joined, and they still are. And I was a huge Iced Earth fan as well. So I'm very lucky that I worked very, very hard, but also was kind of in the right place at the right time to be able to play with bands that I idolized. And to have been a part of that is just such an honor. And it blows my mind now when I see YouTube videos of drummers in Europe playing songs from Sound of Perseverance on drums, and it's just so cool that people even know who I am and know that the stuff that I've played. So it's 20 years ago I could have never dreamed of something like that.
Yeah.
And now also the fact that like Relapse Records is re-releasing Death, Sound of Perseverance on vinyl. They if you go online, they have a trailer for all the different versions of the vinyl albums that are coming out for Sound of Perseverance, the Death album I played on, and it's so cool that people are still so into it. And I know that Chuck would appreciate that as well. Chuck was just such a metalhead and really appreciated the fans, and he was so humble. And I know he would love that all these years later, his albums are still coming out, being re-released on vinyl, and that new generations of fans are discovering his music. So to be a part of that is definitely an honor. And to hear, now that I'm getting a little bit older, to hear the drums that I played back when I was in my early 20s, I'm glad that I was able to capture it on tape, because I practiced really hard for that stuff, and I'll never be that good again, because that was my life then. I was playing 5-6 hours a day back then, and I'm glad that I was able to be a part of something where I was able to kind of show, have something to show for all my hard work.
Absolutely, man. So looking back on, throughout your career as a musician, what would you say was the highlight of your career?
If I had to, there's been so many, and I'm so lucky that I've gotten to go on tour and play, and like I was saying, playing all my favorite bands, and even play on albums that I still listen to as a fan. Like from Iced Earth and Death and Control Denied. if I had to pick one highlight, it would probably be playing with Death in May of 1998 at the Dynamo Festival in Holland. It was my first big show ever, and it was 40,000 people, and it was only about my fourth show playing live with Death. It was actually, I think, the fourth show for every member besides Chuck of the band at the time. Me and Shannon and Scott, we had only played 3 other shows, and then we're playing in front of 40,000 people with Death at the Dynamo Festival, and we played right before Pantera. And Phil Anselmo was sitting right behind my drums, air drumming. It was mind-boggling. And they actually captured that show on video, which I'm so happy about. If you look it up on YouTube, Death Dynamo in 1998. The whole show is on there, and they actually Relapse put out that show on vinyl, like a live album on vinyl, which was awesome too.
Nice.
So it's if I had to pinpoint one thing, I mean, just because that was my first real big legitimate show in front of thousands and thousands of people, and I was terrified before we went on stage, but we got up there and just ripped, and so it would definitely have to be that show.
Nice. Yeah, I've watched that video. I know a lot of people have. That whole festival that year was just legendary. But
yeah, there were so many. Like, I remember seeing Rammstein at that festival before anybody in America knew who they were, and I got to see all these European power metal bands like Primal Fear and Stratovarius and all these bands that never played in the U.S. So it was pretty mind blowing. I think Emperor played that year as well, and it was just, and Strapping Young Lad played. I got to meet Gene Hoglan at the Dynamo Festival, and I got a picture with me and Gene and Chuck that I still have, which was awesome. So, yeah, that was such a legendary festival, and I'm just so honored that I got to be a part of it that one year.
So, Richard Christy, legendary metal drummer, but also a funny bastard too. You took quite some time to spend being part of the Howard Stern show, the mid to late 2000s, as well as you did stand-up comedy, did some movie appearances, guest appearances on TV shows and stuff. Have you ever considered merging your love for comedy with your love for metal and doing a humorous metal band?
Well, I kind of did with Jason Sukoff's band, Crotch Duster. They have an album out, which I was a small part of. But
Big fat box of shit?
Yeah. I was there for the whole recording of it. I was actually living with him for part of the time that he was doing that album. So, yeah.
Is it Stars Indigenous Cooter is the song, right?
Is that the one where there's one of them where
Richard Christy's Metal Festival?
Oh yeah, the Richard Christy Beer Festival of Dusseldorf or something.
Yes.
But yeah, I was so wasted when I recorded that.
Wasn't everybody though?
Oh, absolutely. It was my beer fest. We had to be wasted. Yeah, so I love stuff like that. I actually played drums on, I don't know, unfortunately, their singer passed away, but the band K9 from here in New York, who had 2 different dogs as singers, and I know one of the dogs had passed away, but I played drums for them and sent them a bunch of drum tracks, so they might end up coming out with something, hopefully, with that. And actually, too, I am working on doing a split 7-inch like vinyl with Hatebeak, and it's a band with me and my guinea pig called Board Glue, and it's like real brutal, death metal and black metal, but with my guinea pigs Taco and Tico squeaking over it. So,
that's amazing.
I got a few crazy things in the works.
Oh, all right, man. That's awesome. So, other than that stuff, what's on the horizon for you? You got any other projects in the works?
It's Halloween time, so I'm just enjoying the Halloween season. I did a soundtrack for this event in Westchester, New York, called the Great Jack-O-Lantern Blaze. And I'm like a John Carpenter freak. I love his movies and I love his music. So every year I get to write the soundtrack and write the music for these different scenes that they do at the Great Jack-o'-lantern Blaze, where you're walking through different pumpkin displays. They have 7,000 lit carved pumpkins, and there's different scenes. Like there's one area with dinosaurs. There's one area where you walk through like a Stonehenge kind of thing. And so I do different like synthesizer soundtrack songs or piano songs as well through each of these scenes. So I've been working on that every year, which is a lot of fun. And you can actually, it's good music for Halloween time. If you want something to haunt your house with, you can go on iTunes. If you just search under Blaze the soundtrack on iTunes, you can pick up the soundtrack that I did for that. There's 2 different volumes. But yeah, just working on that. I did a cartoon called Majestic Loincloth. It's like a heavy metal. Yeah, speaking of comedy metal stuff, I did. It's a a heavy metal comedy Viking rock opera.
Nice.
And it's animated. I worked with the guys who did Metalocalypse, the Adult Swim cartoon, which I'm a big fan of. Titmouse Studios. They did the animation for Majestic Loincloth, and if you just search Majestic Loincloth on YouTube, it comes up. And Jason Sukoff and I did the music for it. And you can actually buy the soundtrack on iTunes as well. So that was a blast. That was a lot of fun to do. It's 10 different episodes, and each episode is a different heavy metal song. So that was a lot of fun to do. So yeah, just doing all that, and my wife and I just went to Oktoberfest in Germany, which was a blast. So staying busy.
Nice, man. Nice. I'm definitely going to check out that Majestic Loincloth, too. I've been meaning to do that for a while now. So I often spend time in online metal forums and online, Facebook groups for metal and stuff like that. Every so often, a question comes up about favorite individual instrumentalists, and every time I see a question about favorite drummers, your name gets tossed out quite a few times. So when you were just a young musician starting out, did you ever imagine that you could be someone's all-time favorite drummer someday?
No, definitely not. I'm just some guy that loves metal and loves playing drums. I never could have imagined that. I'm very flattered by that. And, I have to thank my parents. I mean, my parents always supported me as a drummer and let me practice as much as I want. Luckily, I grew up on a farm, so I could just practice nonstop, and the only people I bothered were the chickens and the goats and the ducks, and it's cool to hear that. It's very flattering, I mean, I'm pretty underground as far as drummers go. I'm not as well known as like most big time metal drummers, but the fact that people would consider me their favorite drummer is it's such an honor. So, it made all those hours and hours practicing and living in a storage unit for 8 years worth it. So, that's all I ever wanted to do was be a good drummer, be good enough to play in death. Because, I was a huge Sean Reiner fan and huge Gene Hoglan fan. So that was kind of my dream, was to one day be good enough to play in death, and I got to do that. So, it's an honor to hear that.
Absolutely, man. Well, you're a very well-known drummer in all the circles that I run in, so.
Thank you.
Absolutely, man. So speaking of people just starting out, though, the thing is that you've had a very active career. What advice would you have to offer to any young musician just starting out looking to make a go of it in the music industry?
That's a tough one. Just, it's kind of the typical thing to say, just practice a lot, but I mean, that really is the most important thing. You're going to have to make some sacrifices. Like, I had to live in a storage unit for a long time, and the reason I did that is because I wanted to just be around my drums all the time, and it was tough. It was in Florida, and a lot of time, for a couple of years I had no air conditioning. Living in a metal building and no air conditioning is tough, but I toughed it out just because I loved metal and I wanted to play drums. I love playing drums. I ended up getting to go, tour around the world with bands, so it ended up being worth it. But, and just the advice I always give too is do it because you love it. Don't you know, especially nowadays, music business it's real tough to make a living off of these days. You know, but don't get discouraged. Just do it because you love it, and people can hear that in the music too. I think when you're genuine and when you're playing something you love and writing music that you genuinely love listening to as well, then people can tell that. So, you know, and if you got to take some gigs to pay the bills, that's fine too. You know, there's nothing wrong with that. So yeah, just keep your head up, practice a lot, and try not to get too discouraged.
Awesome, man. All right. Thank you so much for your time. It's been an absolute pleasure to talk with you.
Oh, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. Thank you.